Welcome to the 1% podcast. I am joined by the gorgeous, I was going to say flexible. I was going to give you the worst intro then ever. But she is pretty flexible. Nicola, so welcome to the podcast, Han. How you doing?
I am good. Thanks for having me, Brandon.
Anytime. All I want to do is we kind of just chatted before this, really. I just literally just want to chat shit. So just kind of give me even an intro to kind of you. Who are you? How did you kind of get into the fitness industry in a sense?
Amazing, of course. So my name is Nicola. I go by Nick. I am an online fitness coach. I am based in Glasgow. My background is very much, I was a professional dancer. We've had this conversation, but I came out the womb dancing, and I was a professional dancer from the age of 18. I started working for Norwegian Cruise Lines as a dancer aerialist. Traveling the world, I was going to say lucky, but I worked for it. So lucky, but I lived my dream. That was my dream growing up, and I was able to achieve it. When I was 20, I had an injury that basically cracked my skull and shut my nervous system down. Didn't realize how serious it was at the time, but 2 years later, at the age of 22, it ended my career quite abruptly. I took really unwell. I really wasn't doing well, and I was diagnosed very recently with an autoimmune disease, and I'm still trying to figure out the name of the other one, but basically the wiring in my brain doesn't shoot properly or something like that. So that is where my dance career sadly ended, but I was already learning and qualifying as an online or as a personal trainer. So that was something I was going into anyway, was coaching. You know, as a dancer, or you'll know this yourself as a professional athlete, everything around nutrition and training isn't necessarily coming from a great place. You're probably better than me because you were on Team GB, but in my background, I didn't have the best introduction to feeling my body. So the reason I wanted to get into fitness was to empower women, have body confidence, and to educate women on the education of nutrition and training that I didn't have when I was a professional athlete.
Yeah, no, do you know what? I think if anyone follows you, they know exactly that. You're very open, which is, it's very rare to find. I remember when I started talking to you, just generally, just through Instagram, and then we just kind of started chatting normally. What people see on your stories is generally you, which is the nice thing, which is super nice. And I think we've covered this topic, so I think we can dabble into kind of your career with dance and stuff like that. When you've been, we can both relate. We've both done this. When you come from a sporting background and things like that, we feel like that's defined us massively. That's all we've known from a young age. And that is almost, and when things start to happen, your career changes or an injury happens, and that's it, you've lost technically dance out of your life. How did that make you feel? Even to this day, how do you feel about kind of that? Do you feel like dance still defines you to an extent?
It was I've danced since I was 3 years old, and I know, I don't really know it at the time, but that's not all I knew, but it's all I dedicated my time to. When I was 11, 12 years old, I started training intensely, 20 hours a week on top of school. So when my career ended so abruptly, I had the biggest identity crisis of my life. And that sounds so dramatic, but when you attach yourself, I was bullied in high school, and I never really felt like I fit in anywhere. And I always say, dance was the thing that saved me. It was the one thing that made me feel like I belonged somewhere. And being an artist as a dancer, it was my way of expressing how I felt. So not only did I lose my passion and lose my ability to perform, which is what I ultimately love to do, I lost my voice and how I could express how I was feeling. And that's something that I have yet to still find. And I don't think anything will ever compare to what dance made me feel. And that's scary because that was my everything. Obviously, I found new purpose and new passion in what I do now. And I freaking love what I do. I love coaching women. I love helping women discover their body confidence. It fires me up. It really does. But there is a part of me that will never, no matter what in my life, will never be fulfilled the way that dance fulfilled me. And that's scary. That is scary. And it is a big identity crisis. It defines you. And when you dedicate so much time and energy and every part of your life, I didn't go to parties. I I I still don't drink. That's from other reasons, but I don't drink. And it was my sole life. Every decision I made was based on my performance as an athlete.
And I think you nailed it there. It's where you say from 11 years old, when you're supposed to have sleepovers and when you're supposed to have all these social things, or when you get to 18, you're supposed to do all this sort of stuff. I feel you there, because you're never invited, number one, because everyone knows, oh, she's busy. So you never get invited to all this sort of stuff. So actually, you probably have what most people don't expect is quite I'm not going to say a lonely childhood, because you don't care, right? You're with all your dance girlfriends and things like that. You don't care. But sometimes when you're at school, like you say, you're like, well, I don't see them till after school or before school and things like that. So actually, the school period was quite a lonely time, going into college and things like that. Like, actually, it's a weird combination, is it? Because you kind of feel lost as a kid, but you're not. And I think that affects you later on in life.
Yeah, I think when you become an adult, something that I have learned, and we'll probably talk about this, and we've spoke about this, is you realize how important it is to people, or how important the people you surround yourself with are, in so many aspects of your life. But when you're a kid, or when you're a young 16, 18-year-old chasing your dream, like in quotation marks, your dream, you don't care about any of that. You don't care about anyone else. It's so selfish, but it's what you have to be selfish in order to achieve it.
Yeah, I think that in any goal, though, like a bunch of women, an exact same reason. Like, ladies, you have to be a little bit selfish and make certain sacrifices in order to change your life. Straight up. If you want to drop body fat or whatever it is, habits need to change in order for you to change. And that is scary. It does require some sacrifice, and it does require discipline. It doesn't matter how extreme they are, but all we've done is take extreme and just doubled it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's also, no, good. I thought you froze up for a second, so it's fine. But no, it's there. But just kind of fill me in from a coaching aspect. Like, I do this a lot, focusing on kind of like, especially over the last year, right? Like mental health, confidence, things like that. Sometimes fucking believing in yourself. Is there anything particular that you do differently, maybe, to help women out currently? Do you know what I mean? Or do you just think I'm just there constantly?
And my coaching service, you mean?
Yeah.
I think it's important to cover more than just, squats and chicken. There's more to a fitness journey than training and nutrition. It comes down to your self-talk. Something that I kind of encourage some of my clients to do is journaling. I journal. I have journaled for years, and it gets my thoughts out on paper, and I've noticed that it helps my clients as well. Your self-talk is so key in how you're going to succeed in anything in life, and how you're going to even just progress going forward. So I think just acknowledging and encouraging my clients that this is more than just training and nutrition. This is covering so many different aspects of your life, and kind of explaining the impact that it has. If you grow in confidence, okay, so say you start doing your squats and you eat your chicken, right? And you lose some, it's just my example, you lose
great example.
You lose 10 kilos, for example, right?
Yeah.
10 pounds or 10 kilos or 7 kilos or whatever the weight is you've lost. It's not just the weight you've lost. It's not that. It's not just the clothes size drop that you get. It's the confidence that comes with that, but it's also where that takes you then in the next part of your life. So, will you go for that job promotion? Will you maybe go on a date that you weren't going to go on before? Are you there's so many different things. Take that selfie for Instagram that you maybe wouldn't have taken before. And, Instagram gets a bad rep now, but that would mean a lot to someone if they didn't have that. So, or if they weren't going to do that. So I think knowing that this covers so much more than just losing weight or losing, inches off your waist, that it changes your life.
I think as well, the biggest thing is you've been in the trenches. The reason you can give out advice is because you fucking suffered like anyone else.
Yeah.
You've gone through the transition of feeling lost with who you are because of a sport and things like that. And if anyone's done a sport, anything, I generally can relate so much, because when you've given up years of your life at a young age, that is generally all you know, in a sense. So it's like, I went on a date the other night, whatever it was, and it was like, what's the craziest thing you've done? And in my head, I'm like, fuck me, I'm boring, because I haven't done anything crazy. Like, I think the craziest it's got is I got drunk and pissed myself potentially. But that's literally it. But do you know what I mean? But when people tell other stories, like, I've been here, done that, you know, and I'm like, is it me or am I boring as shit? Do you know what I mean? So it's probably the same sort of thing, but you've been in the trenches as an athlete and studying your own self-awareness massively. And I think the big thing you've done as well, moving into your own place on your own, holy shit, how much have you learned about yourself just moving in on your own?
Is crazy that I enjoy my own time. I always have. I'm very independent. If anyone knows me, like, I am so independent and not need you to do anything for me. But the level of, okay, first and foremost, sometimes I'm my own liability, and we know this. I see it on my Instagram all the time. So moving in alone, there is a lot of responsibility I did not expect. But in general, like life terms, having, especially in the current circumstances, having to sit in your own company more than I would normally do and have to sit with my own thoughts and challenge them has been the biggest lesson I could have ever learned this year. And it's scary, it's intimidating, but it's made me grow so much. We've spoke about this, but it's a lot of soul searching being on your own, isn't it?
Fuck yeah, 100%. And it's a weird one though, because I think it can be it can be counterproductive as well, massively. You could sit up and curl up and really lose your shit. And I think a lot of people have in this lockdown. If you do live alone, I've got clients that live alone and they have struggled. They've moved out. They needed to be with someone. And do you know what? I fully get that. I fully get that. Because there's days where I'm like, it'd be nice to live with someone or wake up to someone for sure. But it's that weird thing, isn't it? It's like you love your own company, but then sometimes you almost self-sabotage yourself at the other end. Probably like 90% of the time you're good, but that 10% you can fucking write yourself off.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
Do you find as well, like coming from the background of an athlete that we just spoke about, where you are selfish with your own time, where you are so used to just being on your own, do you ever notice that you self-sabotage yourself into more lonely? Not that I'm lonely, I'm not lonely, there's a difference in being alone and being lonely, but do you notice that you sabotage yourself into being somewhat more alone than you already are?
Yeah, 100%. It's like it's like, so obviously for me, I have a bit more flexibility than most people in the world at the moment, but it's like, oh, do you want to come out for dinner? You're like, no.
No.
And do you know what the worst thing is? Sometimes you come up with this like, it's not even a lie. You're just like, oh, I've just got this to do. And you do have this to do, but sometimes you don't need to do that. Like, actually, I've achieved everything that I need to do today. And someone's just asking, do you want to come out, get some steps in, go for a walk? And you're like, no. And things like that. But then this is the really important time to actually understand that scheduling time out for you and getting out of your own mind sometimes is incredible. And I'll kind of relate this almost into, like, me and you have talked about this back and forth for a while, but I've been single for a long, long time. So I've been single for like 4 or 5 years, and I've dated in between and things like that. But like, you know, you're just like, yeah, like, this is naff sort of thing. So I started dating recently, and honestly, it's so nice to talk to someone that isn't fitness or someone that is completely different. So in a sense, it's almost an excuse for me to switch off when I see someone, because I'm like, right, for the next X amount of hours, this is completely getting out my own fucking head sort of thing. And I potentially, like, it's the same thing, even if your friendships and things like that. Like, I don't know how you feel about that.
No, I understand where you're coming from. I think I've only lived back here for like a year before a year within kind of lockdown and stuff. And so my circle here isn't that big anymore. But it wasn't. It was not that it was big before, but it's not big.
Such a big deal here before, and
I don't have the biggest social circle, and even the social circle that I do have is mostly fitness. So it's funny because I have this one friend. She's been my childhood best friend since we were kids, and we see each other maybe once every 6 weeks or something like that. But do you know what? See, when we see each other, it's like we've never spent any time apart. And I think you're so right. It's refreshing. I actually said this to her last time that we spoke. She grounds me a lot because she's so, like, I don't want to say it. She's so small town,
Yeah, like,
legit girly girl, and I love it. It's amazing because it's just so different to what I'm used to, you know?
and I think it's so important to have like different, like I've never had different friendship groups, right? Because obviously we've grown up in that era like where we've just been like sport, fitness, and that's it. So we've gone
Yeah.
from kind of these two areas. But it's so nice to have people like, as funny as it sounds, it's like I have a couple of friends back home and even like a few here that are like, let's just fucking like get wasted. Let's just fucking like, let's just get high and things like that. And you're like, that's pretty fucking sick. And it's so nice to have that normal. What I see, even I'm saying normal. And it's like, well, it's not normal, it's just them, sort of
But
thing.
it's just what we've not experienced because we went from being athletes where you have to be at the top of your game. And like we said, it's an isolated time to then going into a fitness center. We're both have our own businesses. So we both like, you know, are on our own in that aspect as well. So it is, you're so right.
I think this is like, so everyone says like, oh, why did you run with PT? Like, what's the thing? Everyone goes, I wanted to help everyone. I'll be straight up, be like, I was the selfish motherfucker out there. I didn't want, like, I was like, I came off the sport feeling lost, and I was like, right, so you get paid, you get to train. That was literally it for me. And I was like, sick. So I just needed to kind of bring back me again. What was kind of like, I can imagine like, and then you fell in love with coaching. Then I fell in love with the whole process. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing it 5 years later. But I can imagine it's kind of the same for you. You kind of needed something else to be like, well, I need to train. I need to push my body in a certain way, and I've got to do this for me. And then kind of PT was kind of that, oh, that's a nice way to do it. Is that kind of like, I don't know if I'm completely wrong.
Yeah, I would agree. I started training, well, obviously I started training and I love training. So that's why I got into being a coach because it's all about training. So it is linked. I will definitely say I went into coaching. You're probably right actually, and I've just realized this selfishly, trying to educate myself on the things that I wasn't getting educated on.
Yeah.
So I didn't know how to fuel my body for 3 performances in a row. You know, I also was not advised in the best ways on how to do that either. So I wanted to educate myself on the mistakes that I had made. And through that journey, yeah, you're right. I learned, you know, other people are suffering from this and I can help them. And, you know, body confidence is something I'm very passionate about. So
Yeah.
obviously led into that, but you're right, it does start, you know, I think most trainers, to be honest, if you got into it because you love to train and you wanted to train, get paid to get trained or
Yeah,
paid.
100%, 100%. And honestly, like my background was the same as yours. It's like it was all kayaking was all technique based. It was all technique based. So it was like it generally there was no education. The only reason I started going to the gym was like because I went from a junior into a senior class, and it was like, right, the guys are bigger, and most of the guys were working out. That was literally it. But
Yeah.
otherwise, there was no education around kind of like food, what to have like before you got in the water, what should you drink on the water, like pretty much like training, pre-workout meal, post-workout meal, intra-workout. That wasn't there. And the same as training. I was like, I don't know, like we don't use our legs, so let's not do legs. So it was like, cool, back and push. Do you know what I mean? That was literally it. And then it was only from there, it was like, it just evolved from there. And it's the same as dance, really, isn't it? It's like, actually, a lot of it is just hours of practice.
Yeah.
And as long as you can
That's
fucking
why
stand
we're
up,
good at, oh sorry.
I was going to say, as long as you can fucking stand up and dance and move, who cares what goes in your body, right? Like,
Yeah. But it's also why we're good at training because we're used to the repetitive movements. We're used to doing the same thing over and over and over again and not getting bored of it.
do you know what? I've never even thought of it like that.
Mm.
So but that's an interesting point, because then it comes down to like, when does my training program change? Well, it doesn't.
Yeah, right. I know a lot of we hear it a lot from people, you know, every 6 weeks my training program should change. No, if it's not broken, don't fix it.
Yeah. I think that in general though, like sometimes this is where we talk into the topic of like, what's it called again? Where you compare yourself. Comparison syndrome? Something like that? Is that right?
I think so.
I don't know. This is when we're like syndrome. I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's not like a diagnosed medical issue, but it's just when you can't comparing your shit to other people's. It's like when people say like, oh, I'm going to go on like, I'll compare it to like a bodybuilder. Like I'm going to go on a strength phase and then a building phase. I'm like, aren't they both the fucking same? Like, I feel like the mission is there's one goal, get big. So just surely strength and big comes the, and this is the weird thing. It's like, right now we're going to go on this endurance. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's just a way that people do it to sell people for longer.
Yeah. Even when it comes down, you know, a fat loss and a building phase, like you said, the principles are pretty much the same. You still progressively overload, you still fuel your body, you just fuel it in either a calorie deficit or a calorie surplus.
Yeah.
You still do the same movements.
Yeah, 100%. This is the thing, is when it comes down to like movements as well. It's like, okay, 3 movements to grow your legs. Go. Squat, lunge.
Right.
And something else. Give me one more.
Oh. Wait, what did you say? Squat, lunge, deadlift.
Oh, so there you go. So nice and simple, like 3 ways to build your legs. And it also, it's like that's it. Like there isn't many, the human body hasn't changed for fucking thousands of years. So why all of a sudden do we think a curtsy lunge is incredible, or kick back from a fucking Stairmaster and things like that? It's like, guys, like the fucking joint stayed the same for so long. Just get really good at moving it. That's it.
Yes. I know, I say this all the time. You have to be good at the basics. Like, what is the point in trying to do, you know, a big, I don't know, like...
This is where we have no clue what the fuck we're on about. What's this exercise called?
Like a big fancy exercise, like just get used to the basics. Your body, like you said, your body mechanically can only move in certain planes. Like you, to do a deadlift or to do a curtsy lunge, right? You're still lunging, and you're probably just putting your knees at worse risk of injury. So like, just stick to the basics.
Yeah, 100%. But do you know what? This is almost the evolution of the world we're in. Like if we looked back 10 years ago, half this shit wasn't around. So like Instagram wasn't around. Half the time, I think with the gym now, it's like even companies build machinery to kind of like fit in and things like that. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, I've been to a gym when they had a lunge machine. I was like, the fuck is a lunge machine? Generally, you put your foot on like a solid surface, and then there was like a sliding thing that you put your back foot on. It was bizarre. And I was like, but then I'm like, the industry doesn't even help us out. Like, it comes down to like some ab machines. I'm like, when do you need a machine for abs half the time? I'm like,
we're in the era of innovation and entrepreneurship though, and I think unless you're creating something, people think they're inadequate. And I think that's when people, you know, are looking for that fit. Like, what is that secret ingredient for you to make a change or to succeed? It's not. It's consistency. It's building habits. It's building structures, and it's sticking to the basics. You can't innovate, or you can't be an entrepreneur in something brand new just because you want to be an entrepreneur. You know, the basics work every single time. You know.
Yeah. Well, it's the same. You can compare this to anything. The reason, like Facebook, Amazon, very simple concept, right? Amazon, build a system that can deliver shit at a good standard. That's it. Facebook, connect people so you can communicate at a high standard. That's literally it. Very, very simple concept. Why is Zoom verifying right now? Doesn't need to. But that is literally, but it's the same as like a training. It's exactly the same. It's like you say, get good at the basics. And I think this as well, like obviously coaches are going to watch this as well. And it's like, guys, just don't overcomplicate everything. Have your service. What do you deliver? Do you deliver one-to-one coaching? Do you deliver on coaching? Don't come up with all these packages, all this bullshit. Stick to what you're good at and just offer that, and just get better and better at delivering that service. That's it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Simple. Cool. Right. Run me through. What do you think over the last, well, we can relate this into kind of lockdown. What do you think the 3 biggest struggles have been with people, maybe over the last year, I would say? Kind of what are people struggling with right now? And let's kind of give people how can we help them?
How can we help you? I think the 3 biggest reasons people struggle is through lack of consistency. No one, like we've just spoke about, you don't stick to the same, like, you know, change your program up every 6 weeks, or, you know, like coming up to a month and someone going, okay, right, what's next? Like, what changes? If you're still making progress, you continue to do what works until it doesn't work, and then you make adjustments. Lack of consistency. We've actually spoke about 2 of these points. Lack of patience. I don't think people are patient enough. I think we live in an era, and we live in a world, in a society where we have instant gratification. We have instant, We have Uber Eats, we have Amazon Prime, we have things delivered to us instantaneously. We see these shakes that give you drop a dress size in a week. Like, people expect results instantly, and if you want them to last, and if you want to do it in a healthy, sustainable manner, to an extent, because a diet is still not sustainable, you have to be patient and you have to be consistent with your patience. And the third thing I would say, and we've already spoke about this, is this kind of splits into two though, not focusing on the basics, but trying to be perfect at everything. Pick, I say this to my clients before they start, like, and I give them a rundown of everything, but pick one thing this week and get really consistent with that this week. And then next week, add on another one. So if this week, the only thing that you're concerned about is getting your steps in, you better nail that. And then they will nail it because they're focusing on one thing. They're focusing on one basic thing. They're getting good at it. And then next week, we'll say, okay, cool, let's focus on your calories. Let's make sure we're hitting your calories. Then the next week we can think about protein, you know?
Yeah.
And I think, especially if you're a beginner, you need to stick to one thing at a time, get really consistent with it, be patient with it, and then build from the basics.
Do you know what? I literally sat and wrote an Instagram post on that this morning. But it was literally saying that I've done this because you're a perfectionist as well, and I know that, which isn't, I don't think a perfectionist is ever a bad thing. It's just knowing that it's not fucking right, in a sense.
Self-aware about it is probably key.
Yeah, that's literally it. And it is just thinking, right, I'm going to focus on one. I've done that now. So I've just joined a new like mastermind sort of thing. And he was like, dude, just pick one thing to achieve every day. And I was like, you know, when you're just like, this is the same. Someone will watch this. We were saying this before. Someone will watch this podcast and be like, 45 minutes of this was bollocks, but 1% of that was fucking great.
Yeah.
And that's all it is. But this was the same thing. He spoke for almost 2 hours and I was like, fucking one thing every day. That's literally it. And that's the way you can, like you say, it's like, right, focus on one thing this week. What are your non-negotiables this week? Mm-hmm. And I think it's really important to have that in place. And then as soon as you do, you become less overwhelmed, you become less stressed. And then all you do is actually, from doing that, you become consistent. Like you say, because you're just nailing one thing, you become really consistent at it. And then, like you say, right, week 2, you just add in this, and then week 3, you add in this. So I think that's it's a really valid point, because like we've gone back to, as coaches, like our mission is like, diet and fucking training is simple. It's a very simple concept, but we want to change your life, and that's hard. And that requires, like you say, that patience and things like that. And like you're saying, integrating these tools that we've learning to bring it into your life. And I think that was absolutely brilliant. So you couldn't have said it better. Well done. Sick. I love that.
We're not, I think what's important to remember as well is, yes, we're giving you the training nutrition breakdown, but that's not what we're providing within a service. We're providing you with the tools and the support and education to build these training and nutrition habits into your life. It all comes down to habits and structures. If you get, like I said, like you just said, if you become consistent with something, it becomes a habit. And if anyone follows me, they know I'm a big believer in habit, structure, and planning. If you don't plan, you will not succeed. The deviations will come in and decision fatigue will take over, and you'll choose the easy option, which probably won't align with your goals. So the minute you get that as a habit or a structure in your day and in your life, you're going to have a much higher chance of success.
Cool. Right. Now that I want to know this, because then I'm going to be selfish here. What's a day in the life of you at the moment?
Day in the life. I've actually changed.
I feel like I should get a pen and paper out and write down your structure so I can copy it.
So I start my morning. Do you want to go through everything? I start my morning with, I normally read or go for a walk. So the first thing I do is I try and serve myself, or, you know, do something for me first. So I either go for a walk or I read, one of the two. Try and get both in, but, you know, doesn't always work. So try and get one of those in. Do not go on my phone. This is I'm trying to be stricter in this. Do not go on my phone. I normally then sit down and I do some form of deep work or creative work. So not responding to messages, not responding to Instagram, not having my phone out, like literally getting into a deep task, whether that be writing content or writing guides or any sort of creative project that I'm working on or any big project, that gets done. And then I would probably put my phone on between 8:30 and 9:30, respond to client messages for an hour, check in on them, and then I get through my to-do list in the morning. Then I normally finish my steps at lunchtime, get all my steps in. Then my afternoon is normally just more work, ticking through tasks, calls, that type of thing. Train probably about 4 or 5, and then I work until probably about 7, normally with some calls and things. And then I like to say I chill out in the evening, but I don't. I definitely still, I'm doing something, I'm responding to messages or whatever. But that's my lockdown day in the life at the minute.
Do you think you'll transition much differently, like going out? No, I didn't think so.
No, my life's the same. The only difference is I will travel to the gym rather than it being in my living room.
Yeah, that'll be a nice thing. What's saying that? How's everything in Scotland at the moment? What's the deal there right now? I feel like I shouldn't have asked that question now.
We're still in complete lockdown. We still have like at least another month. The gym's open on the 26th. I was corrected. I thought it was the 27th, but it's 26th.
Cool.
So in a month, or just under a month. I think bars and restaurants open, but I don't know if it's like table service. So no, we're still in complete lockdown.
Okay, cool. But I think that's a really important thing because, like, there's so much okay, don't get me wrong. You've probably done it. I've done it. I've tried the 5 a.m. club, get up, fucking all this sort of shit. And I was like, don't get me wrong. I've never tried a cold shower. I've had a cold shower a couple of times, but like not
unintentionally.
Yeah, unintentionally, like when the fucking hot water's broken or something. Not purposely. But I think it's a weird thing, isn't it? Like, because everyone feels like, oh, I should be a morning person, I should be an evening person. And I'm like, dude, honestly, like what works best for you? And it's the same. Like, I think you're quite productive in the morning. You're just a morning, like kind of like you just more clarity and things like that. But sometimes you might switch around, and some evenings you're like, shit, like it just comes to you. Sort of stuff. So I think
sometimes I'll sit down, like it will come to like 8 o'clock, like my phone goes off at 9 p.m. I come off social media, I say goodbye to the world. If you try and contact me after 9, you ain't getting me until at least 9 o'clock the next day, right? My phone is away, and I normally try, like I go and I journal and I read before bed, but sometimes it'll be like 8:30 at night and I'm like, ping, like an idea comes to me and I'm like, I got to get started on this now. And you're there for hours and that's fine. But have you read Why We Sleep by Matthew?
I don't want to, man. I'm too scared.
It talks about if you're like a morning person and a night person. And I think a lot of night people that are productive at night think that because they're not morning people, they're not productive. And it's not. You're just productive at a different time.
Yeah, I thought you were going to tell me I was going to die in like 2 weeks.
Yeah, I know. A lot of people get the fear from that book.
Do you know what? I should probably read it, or like, I'm not going to read it. I'll listen to it. But do you know what? I was too scared. I was going to read that book. Like, if you get 5 hours sleep for like 3 nights in a row, you will die the next day.
I went into it thinking as well, but it's not as bad as okay, definitely need to get your 8 hours.
Okay, shit. All right, yeah. To be fair, do you know what's funny though? Like, we can bring this right back into like circle and environment. Do you know this is a really bizarre concept. Probably not many know the reason actually why I moved here. And it was because I came here in November and I was here for 2.5 weeks and I slept every night and I didn't wake up. That was generally one of the biggest factors why it's such a stupid idea, but why I moved here, because I was in an unhappy situation at home. I wasn't happy in London. I wasn't happy, things like that. Did I have to move abroad? Probably fucking not. But I was just like, it was 2.5 weeks where I slept and I woke up and I thought, oh, this is what it feels like to sleep. Because from 2018, from my last competition prep, I had insomnia for like 10 months where I probably got about like 3-4 hours sleep every night. And I thought that was normal. I felt feeling like that was generally like a normal thing until I started to sleep and I realized, holy shit, like I'm broken, sort of thing, or I was broken. So it is just kind of like, actually, your environment is fucking everything. And I didn't even know it could affect you to that extent.
Would you say that moving out there has been the best thing for you, your business, and your well-being?
Short term, no. Straight up, it's hard. It's like you say, it is quite a lonely situation. This is the thing. Everyone's like, oh, you know, it's great. You can go for a walk. I'm like, Yeah, but it doesn't make someone happy, right? It's to say like, Nicola, if I give you £1 million, doesn't mean you're going to be happy. There's no fulfillment there. We need to have fulfillment to make us happy. It's hard for sure being here, away from family and things like that. But I know all the friends that I've built are generally online. And I think that's the lovely thing about it, is that I know I can reach out to anyone and they will be there. That's the nicest thing about it. But I think long term, 100%, it's going to benefit myself and the business. It already started. It already is. I think living on my own, being healthier in myself, having my training as like a top priority, more so. I'm progressing with that massively. But no, short term, no, it's fucking shit. It's hard. And this is, but obviously, like longer term for the business, yes, you're in the Middle East, so like my business is registered here, it's tax free, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, that's great long term. Moving abroad's fucking expensive, so guys, be prepared for that if you do want to do it. Moving in general sucks, but I think long term it'll be good. But I think the nicest thing about it is like you've done this, you've moved into your own place and things like that. Guess what? If shit fucks up, you go.
Yeah.
You haven't lost anything from it, so it's just you just got to see how it goes. It's like, oh, where do you want to be in 5 years time? I'm like, well, I like fitness still, so I might be doing that. Who knows what path I'll go down there, but otherwise,
I think what's really important that you said in there is fulfillment. Just because you do something that's even, dare I say it, insta worthy, or you do something, like move and something materialistic, or you do something, and it doesn't even have to be materialistic, but for nothing matters unless you feel, not nothing, but nothing matters if you don't feel fulfilled, and I think we've had this conversation numerous times, that it really does come down to the people that you surround yourself with. If you do something great and you don't have people to share it with, although it's for you, it does feel lonely, and that always overpowers it every time. And I think we can definitely vouch for that, considering I traveled for 6 years or 5 years and lived my dream, and it was incredible, but I come home and I don't have anyone to talk to about it, because they don't get it. And that's okay, that's my goal, that was my dream, but it was fulfilling in the moment. But what you do has to be fulfilling, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, that's it. And I've said this to a couple of people, that I said, like, obviously me and you are fully based online, but I was like, I'm definitely going to take up some one-to-one coaching here for sure. There's no doubt about that. Like, easily. I'll happily do like, I don't know, like 5 hours, something like that. Nothing crazy, like 5 to 10. I would happily do that right now. Purely because actually I love training people now. Like, I generally want to be like that typical, like, fucking PT. Do you know what I mean? Just like drilling someone into the ground sort of thing. And I think 100%, like everyone, this is the thing, like if anyone coaches online that watches this, you hunt for this like fucking online coaching bullshit dream, it's the hardest thing you'll ever do, for sure. If you think getting work on the gym floor is easy, or hard rather, and things like that, try committing online. It's generally the hardest thing. And there's too much shit out there. Like, there's too many gurus that know all this fucking fancy shit, join this and join that, and like, oh, it's just such a bizarre concept world. But actually, like, having that one-to-one coaching approach is so nice. It's so nice. And we know it's like when you train with someone, it's incredible.
Yeah,
it's the same sort of thing, because online coaching is generally a very lonely task. I generally look forward to check-ins because I get to talk to people.
Yeah, it can be lonely.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think we've covered so much there, to be honest. I think it's loads. I'm losing track now, so it's fine. We're just rambling for the point. But I think if you could give anyone kind of one piece of advice, something that's going to allow someone to go one step further forward today or tomorrow, what would you say to anybody watching this?
Focus on one thing. Don't try and be a master or a jack of all trades. Don't try and, don't jump in a bandwagon of a diet and say, or even in life, and think, oh, I'm going to change my life overnight. It doesn't work. It changes step by step, and it changes habit by habit. So picking one thing to focus on, no matter what it is, if it's fat loss, if it's fitness, if it's your house decoration, whatever it is, no matter what it is in life, just focus on one thing, get really good at it, really consistent at it, and then build from there. Start from the bottom. Don't be afraid to be a beginner.
No, love that. Love that. Sorry, I'm going to go completely off again. I'm just going to hold you for a little bit longer. We can keep that. But obviously, like, you work with a lot of beginners. This is kind of what TikTok. You work with a lot of beginners that haven't entered the gym, all this sort of stuff, and you work with females. All females? You work with any guys or just all
I
females?
have one guy, one guy, Hugh, loyal.
So obviously, pretty much mostly female based. I think obviously because you have an autoimmune. Is it a disease or illness or neither?
Autoimmune. I don't know.
I'm just trying to diagnose you like you're broken.
It's still very new to me, and to be honest, I don't want to. This is a thing, right? I don't do a lot of research on it because I don't want to look at all the symptoms and be like, oh, every day, like, you know, it's what's that called when you what's that called?
Shitting yourself.
No, but like, if I look at if I said I've got the flu, so I'm going to have a headache, a runny nose, and a whatever, then I'm going to have those things because I've told myself I'm going to.
Oh, I know. Yeah, it's like when you've got a lump, you're like, that's it, I've got cancer.
Yeah, right. So yeah. I don't want to look into it too much. I don't want to know too much because then I'll like tell myself I have all these things, you know.
Yeah, no, that's
I'm
cool.
still relatively
I think it's the same as anything. I wouldn't research anything. I've done that before. Got a sore throat? Well, that's it. Throat cancer. You're gonna die tomorrow. You're like, fucking hell. Yeah. But kind of obviously, I think the nice thing about that you, I guess, have this thing that you're learning about yourself the whole time is that I guess you're working with even females that potentially have maybe because people feel confident to reach out to you because you've expressed this, but maybe females that have even things down to like not a regular cycle and potentially some underlying hormone or health issues. Do you kind of like, do you battle that often with clients or is things like that? Because obviously as a female, as any coach, you have a female, you need to look at obviously the contraception, hormone cycles, all this. There's a lot more. Women are confusing, right? So there's a lot that goes on.
We're like a maze. So it's funny, you'd be surprised the amount of females that do have menstrual cycle issues. Now, I am not a specialist, I am not a doctor, and I definitely recommend any female that does have these kind of issues to go see a doctor if you have PCOS and things like that. But you would be surprised the amount of females that do have sort of issues or hormonal issues, but also that don't know that they have hormonal issues or they don't know that they have mental issues. You'd also be surprised the amount of or the lack of knowledge around the menstrual cycle out there. It's something that I'll put my hands, and I'm so transparent, you know, if you follow me, I'm so transparent. I lost my menstrual cycle for pretty much my whole life. I only just got it back in the last couple of months, and that's took a lot of work, and it's something that I've had to educate myself on, and you'd be surprised the amount of women that don't have a lot of knowledge on it. I was included in that at one point. I've just educated myself now, so I definitely help direct my clients to knowledgeable sources where they can learn more about their bodies, and I will help them through that journey. Again, I'm not a doctor, so I would never, you know.
No, I totally agree with that.
Through that journey, but I definitely support them through it, and I help educate them, and I help direct them to sources that are accurate and concise information.
Yeah, no, and do you know what? I'm glad you said that because this is what people assume. People are like, oh, like Nicola gets great results with clients and things like that, but people don't see the underlying issues and barriers that you face. And this is something you're never going to express. Be like, I work with this client, Claire, she's 57 and she doesn't have a cycle. You're like, you're not going to say that, are you? Yeah. So it's like, actually, I'm the same. I probably work with 75% women, but obviously I take women through photo shoots as well. And actually preparing them to say, actually, potentially 5-6 weeks out, you will lose your cycle. Like it's going to happen. Like when you drop body fat that low, you're probably going to lose your cycle. Don't worry. It is okay. Like we can control it. And then vice versa. And then potentially 5 to 8 weeks post the photo shoot, you'll probably get your cycle back sort of thing. Hopefully quicker. We want to get it back as quickly as possible, right? So we want to get body fat back up, especially as a female. We want to get body fat back up as quick as possible to start to get that regulation ticking over. But like you say, it's like you track your female's cycle like every month, right? All the time. And it's little things that I notice. It's like, actually, like, cool, you start your cycle here, you finish your cycle there. Ideally, we want to see that every month, pretty fucking consistent. But when it's little red flags, like, oh, why is it starting 2 weeks earlier? Or why is bleeding more than often? Or et cetera, and things like that. And it is important, like you say, it's like, you're not a doctor, but these are little flags that are popping up. We might want to go get it checked, or we might want to get some bloods done and things like that. I think it is
Yeah.
You're a very good coach if you can take responsibility and say, I don't know what's going on. I'll look into it, but I think we should get some physiotherapy, whatever the injury may be, or a hormone cycle, go see a doctor, go to an osteopath, things like that. And it's the same for you. It's like you work with a coach, and like if I was your coach, I'd be like, right, we need to nail your health right now before, I don't care if you put 100 kilos on your back, but we need to get Nicola healthy before we start pushing her into this phase sort of thing. So
yeah. And I think as well, like when it does come down to the menstrual cycle, there's so many things that can implement that can cause an effect on your menstrual cycle. And there's like a 3-month delay as well. So something that stressed you out 3 months ago will not necessarily show up until your cycle 3 months later. So it's always important to remember that. And, you know, sometimes your cycle isn't linear as well. You know, it's not a perfect 28-day cycle. It can fluctuate. So I think it's just important to remember that. But I think it's going back on something else you said, when we post our clients' pictures and things like that, it's important, you know, I get this a lot, to not compare yourself. And it comes back to that self-comparison. You don't know what that client's went through. You don't know what that client's metrics are at. You don't know where they started. You don't know where they're ended. You don't know what their journey's been like. You don't know what difficulties they've faced or what difficulties they've not faced. You don't know what their health markers are like. You know, you could be suffering with PCOS without realizing, and that could have an impact on your fat loss journey when someone doesn't have it, but you don't even know you have it yet. So it's important that when you see a journey as well, that you don't compare your journey to that, because there's so many variables that can distinguish us between person to person.
Yeah, 100%. And I think also, if it, like, even for guys, I just had to get a client just to do his bloods, because like, just, you know, you're doing everything, like the dude's executing everything, but things just aren't falling into the right place. And there was some red flags. I was like, let's get some bloods done and things like that. And a couple of health markers came back. You're like, okay, great. Now we know what to improve on and things like that. And I think as well for guys, what you should understand is that sometimes we have a testosterone range, a healthy testosterone range. I think it's 30 nanomoles or something. I think it's nanomoles to about 29 or something like that. But some guys are just lower on the testosterone reading, and that is just you. You can't boost that. You can't do anything about that. That is just something, your genetic makeup. And like you say, it's like everyone has their own starting position. Everyone has their own thing going on, and you can't, that is them. So what you have to do is adapt the process to them fully.
Yeah.
So no, absolutely spot on. No, it's good. No, I'm glad I covered that with you, because it was like, I think when you go through your own journey of kind of, because I know how, like, it's been frustrating for you at the same time, because you've come from Scotland all the way down to London to get professional help, and you're going massively out your way to, I don't think like cure it, but to learn more about it and how can I live a life around it in a sense.
Yeah.
And
with my health, there is a lot that I can't control, and it genuinely is a case of management going forward. I will never get rid of them. Also something, again, that I'm very transparent about, through my lack of eating and overtraining as a dancer, I developed a condition called REDS, which is relative energy deficiency in sport, which fuels all of my other, or not all of my, I have like one other condition. It fuels my health condition in a negative way. And it drives, like, you know, my body my body wasn't functioning. It was not at optimal health. So, you know, and again, this is another take home point for women out there is, you know, I do have abs. I am muscular. My body was not in a peak place of health until very recently, over in the last couple of months when I started working with my coach. And I think it's very important to remember that as well.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. No, I think it's a really nice way to end it as well. So I think it's quality. So you're looking after yourself, and that's the most important thing. Like, it's understanding that you dealt with the cards you've got. So actually, like, how can we overcome it and move forward? So I think it's brilliant. And it's just having that, as hard as it is, having that positive light on it some days. Because I know you have that attitude of like, right, let's go, success. But then you need to understand that it's like when your prime example, you got the COVID jab, right? Normally people are fine, kind of like 12 hours after that, but because of your immune disease, that it wiped you out for what, 2-3 days?
7.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, I was so ill.
Yeah. So, and also you're the personality type. Like we talked about it over text. Like, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. I'm like, love, you're fucked. You can't do shit. Just rest.
I was in a meltdown. I was like, oh my God, I'm getting nothing done. And you were like, chill out.
It's also like, no matter what people say, like no matter what I say, you're still not going to chill out. I guarantee you're still in bed with your laptop trying to do as much as possible.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's it. So it's like, as much as you tell someone to shut off and chill, it's like, I know she's not going to do it, but at least I said it.
I tried.
But no, it's awesome. No, Hannah, it was absolutely brilliant to speak to you. Where can people find you? All this sort of stuff. Where are you? Where do you exist?
You can find me on Instagram. Connect with me on Instagram. My user or my Instagram name is at Nick Thomson Fit. So shoot me a message. My DMs are always open. I love to chat with new people. So yeah, you can find me there.
Not everyone is sliding into your DMs though. Can we just?
Not everyone. The
Yeah.
requests.
Yes, it's like, well, yeah. You left it open now, so everyone just fucking go deep.
I walked into that one.
That's awesome, man. Cool. Right, I'll love you and leave you here, and I will speak to you in a bit.
Amazing.